As the story unfolds, we are introduced to our protagonist, Jin-seok, a young man who's moving to a new home with his family, his father, mother, and older brother, Yoo-seok. Jin-seok is a character shrouded in uncertainty, given his daily intake of psychiatric medication. This sets the stage for the viewer to question and dissect the reality that Jin-seok experiences. Jin-seok's first encounter with the uncanny in his new home comes in the form of nightmares and eerie noises emanating from a mysterious room, a room he's strictly forbidden from entering. The suspense thickens when an unthinkable event rocks the family's harmony. Jin-seok witnesses the abduction of his brother Yoo-seok by a group of sinister men in a black van. However, when the investigators arrive, they claim that the license plate number provided by Jin-seok doesn't exist, adding another layer of mystique to the story. Fast forward 19 days, Yoo-seok returns home, much to Jin-seok's relief. However, this relief is short-lived as Jin-seok starts noticing oddities in his brother's behavior. Yoo-seok's limp is different now, and his late-night escapades, which he vehemently denies, perplex Jin-seok. Determined to uncover the truth one night, Jin-seok decides to follow Yoo-seok and ends up at a building where the investigators from the abduction case are apparently working for Yoo-seok. In a chilling turn of events, Jin-seok is spotted, drugged, and put back in his bed. The next day, Yoo-seok convinces him that the previous night was nothing more than a hallucination, induced by skipping his medication. But Jin-seok isn't convinced. He finds concrete evidence in his room that confirms his suspicion that the man claiming to be his brother is an imposter. Jin-seok takes his discoveries to his mother, but his world comes crashing down when he realizes that his whole family is part of this grand deception. The people he believed to be his family are nothing more than skilled actors manipulating him. After a daring escape, Jin-seok goes to the police to reveal the shocking truth. But the plot takes a dramatic twist as the police point out inconsistencies in Jin-seok's narrative. They question his age, claiming he can't be 21, and the year, stating it's not 1997 as Jin-seok believes. The true shock comes when Jin-seok sees a calendar in the office. The year is 2017, and he is, in fact, a 41-year-old man. This revelation throws the viewer into a whirlpool of confusion, leaving them questioning the nature of reality as Jin-seok knows it. As Jun steps into the threshold of his home, a wave of confusion washes over him. The door to that once mysterious room swings open, revealing the macabre scene of an artificial murder. Fake blood splattered across the room, eerie music echoing from the radio. Suddenly, the imposter brother appears, a grim look on his face. The plan has faltered again, he mutters, his gaze meeting Jun's. The truth begins to unfold, pulling Jun back to the year 2017. A potent blend of hypnotic trance and psychotropic drugs had been used to trap Jun in a replicated reality of the year 1997. The family he believed was his own was nothing more than an elaborate ruse, with his supposed father playing the role of the hypnotist. Jun's past is a gruesome tapestry of crime. In 1997, a mother and her daughter were murdered in this very house, their killer never brought to justice. The lone survivor, a young child, had sought vengeance, hiring private investigators from the criminal underworld to unravel the truth. The imposter brother was the linchpin of this operation, and after finding Jun, they subjected him to days of torture. The shock of these events was so profound that Jun had suppressed them from his conscious memory, with even the hypnotist unable to pry them free. Their strategy evolved. They would use hypnosis to transport Jun back to 1997, to the precipice of these traumatic events, in hopes that he would recall his horrific actions. Their ultimate goal: to exact revenge on a fully cognizant Jun, aware of his past sins. The so-called kidnapping of Yoo-seok was in fact an arrest. The imposter brother was incarcerated for 19 days, managing to worm his way out through bribery. During his absence, the hypnotic hold over Jun began to wane, causing him to question the peculiarities of his surroundings. These strange occurrences and doubts were indeed real, as the hypnosis slowly lost its grip. Jun, however, is in denial. He refuses to believe he is capable of such a crime, and in a desperate bid for freedom, a car chase ensues, culminating in a crash that leaves Jun unconscious. He awakens in a sterile hospital bed. the imposter brother looming over him, poised to administer a lethal dose of poison. As death draws near, Jun's memory surges back, forcing him to relive his past as it truly occurred. 1997 marks the end of Jun's blissful life. We see a poignant scene where Jun is in a car with his family, his father, mother, and older brother. These aren't the same people he's been living with recently. His head is reclined on his mother's shoulder, and he's asleep. This setting is where the story begins, where the hypnotic narrative unfolds. In a series of real-life events that transpired 2 decades prior, this car journey ends in a catastrophic accident. The parents are killed, and the older brother is hospitalized, critically injured, and needing costly surgery. Jun is left alone, destitute, and in despair. Jun's attempts to find employment remain futile due to the economic crisis. However, one day he receives an unusual proposition. A stranger offers to provide the money he needs, but in return, Jun must commit murder. Driven to desperation, Jun accepts. He is given an address. Coincidentally, it's the house where he currently resides, and he's required to recreate the events of that night. He breaks into the house under the cover of darkness, but at the last moment, he decides to back out. As he attempts to leave, something goes awry. The older daughter begins to scream in terror. Panicked, Jun chases her and unintentionally kills her. The mother walks into the scene, and Jun ends up killing her as well. He manages to trick the younger child who had awakened and makes his escape, leaving the child alive. The following day, Jun confronts the man who commissioned him for the murder. The man turns out to be the father of the murdered family and the doctor caring for Jun's older brother. He intended to kill his wife for the insurance money, but he's enraged to find his daughter dead too. In the ensuing confrontation, the doctor is killed. Jun returns home, and from then on, he begins a process of repressing his memories of the recent events, completely forgetting them so he can live in peace with himself. Fast forward to a hospital room. Jun now remembers everything. The boy standing before him, seeking the truth, reveals that he is the surviving child. He realizes that Jun did not act on his own volition. He comes to understand that it was his father who manipulated Jun into committing the murders. Despite Jun's denials to protect him from the devastating truth, the boy decides to spare Jun, exits the room, and jumps out of the window. His life, now devoid of purpose and revenge, feels useless. Jun, unable to convince the boy otherwise, had inadvertently led him towards this tragic end. Overwhelmed by the resurgence of his gruesome past, Jun decides to end his own life with the remaining poison on his bedstand. The only thing that had helped him survive all these years was his amnesia, but with the return of his memories, life becomes unbearable. In the closing scene, we witness Jun as a spirited young man, stepping into the year 1997, embarking on a journey towards his new abode. The vibrant, flamboyant colors permeate the atmosphere, radiating a sense of liveliness. It is a fleeting moment of pure joy, destined to become the last of its kind in his life. A child approaches him, wordlessly engaging in a brief encounter before returning to their family. And as the camera pans, we glimpse the faces of a united family. The doctor who will soon care for Jun's beloved sibling, the mother and daughter whose fates are tragically sealed. In that final instant of bliss, Jun finds himself in a profound harmony with the world and the individuals whose lives he unknowingly becomes the harbinger of destruction for.